Hi everyone, welcome to Commissioner Wilson's virtual office hours.
Hey,
Hey
hey!
Commissioner Wilson!
Woo!
How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm very grateful for technology today. Thank you for letting us do this all together in different parts of the county.
Absolutely. You look like you're in Hogwarts right now, which if you guys didn't know that, Hogwarts is in Orange County, Florida. And she's a professor there.
Look at all those books.
Awesome. So we have a special guest with us today, Hannah, the policy aide. Hi, Hannah.
I like that I'm here every day, but every time you introduce me, I'm still special, and that's really meaningful to you. Thank you.
That's because
Appreciate
people
that.
want to know. People want to know who's behind the scenes helping Commissioner Wilson on her incredible, agenda during her time here. So Commissioner, how was your week this week? You went to redistricting. How did that go?
It's going, and I think, just to back up a little bit, I agree. Having Hannah here is always special, especially on like this where we have a BCC, which is the Board of County Commissioners meeting, and there's lots of policy discussions going on. So it gets thick, and man, she can sort through it. Yes, our week started out Monday with a redistricting meeting. The appointees from all the different commissioners and the mayor met actually in Barnett Park so that they could be socially distanced. But the public is still very welcome to come to all of the redistricting meetings. They are looking at maps now.
Okay.
Yeah, which is very exciting because now, the first two, I've been watching them as well. The first couple were procedural, which were actually very interesting as well. I think the first meeting was probably like 3.5 hours, but I was riveted the whole time, honestly, because people brought up amazing points, and I was really happy to see those appointees from every district just really thoughtful and adding a lot of value to the conversation. So the same thing happened on Monday, and it was really cool. I highly recommend everyone watch.
I was going to say it's very, I think it's a very interesting process. There's something that feels very representative about having each of our commissioners have 2 appointees and hearing from them, knowing that they largely don't know each other, but hearing that they have agreements on some of the things and concerns about the procedural stuff was, to me, very encouraging. Seeing the level of detail that they're working with, their commitment to this process should make everybody feel really good. But that being said, it's a very public process, which means that maps can be really made by groups of citizens or individual citizen. And they're brought to that board of the advisory board by one of the appointees. So, if you are interested in doing one of those maps, looking at the redistricting map, go to Orange County website, just Google in, Orange County, Florida redistricting, and you'll see there's some really great interactive tools to see how our population in this area has grown over the last 10 years. So this is a process we only get to do once every 10 years. I feel really grateful to be here during redistricting, but at the same time, I feel a little bit nervous about the way that the outcome is going to be, because it will look somewhat different. So I want as much public engagement as possible. If you have any questions about it, please reach out to us.
Yeah, and I will say that the first night after redistricting, I was so excited. I messed around with the map, and it is pretty tedious. Pro tip / not really a pro tip, because it was so tedious I didn't finish my map, is zoom in when you're doing those census block renegotiations, because the reason I didn't finish it was because I made all these kind of big drawings and stuff, and then it said, you have too many non-contiguous districts, and I couldn't even see from the zoomed out. So if you mess with it, be meticulous.
Exactly. And you can, if you come to one of the meetings, those questions, you can get up and do public comment, and you can comment. There was a lot of comment actually about the software that is being used and some of the challenges. And I think it's helpful for everyone to hear that, because it gives us a better understanding of what ends up being submitted and what some of those limitations are.
Yeah. Okay, so as Commissioner said, go ahead and look up Orange County, Florida redistricting, and you'll see the list of dates. The next one's going to be Monday, October 18th at the South Econ Recreation Center, and we'll post about that as it comes forward. So super excited. Another update, we have a really important event to highlight on Tuesday about Ocoee's commission meeting. So Commissioner, if you wanted to talk a little bit about the retail pet store ordinance.
I have to take a deep breath before this one because you all know how I feel about the animal welfare issue, and in particular about the efforts that we've made in Orange County and in 13 other counties across the state protecting animals and also protecting consumers. There is plenty of evidence out there, and it's been very empirical to look at the evidence and data that puppy mills that are out of our state import to retail pet stores inside of our state. And there were some really big offenders in Orange County, and several of those even are under investigation from our state attorney's office. So one of the things that the county can do to try to make sure that we're protecting both consumers and keeping a close watch on animal welfare is to try to get businesses away from that retail pet sale model and go to supplies and training and grooming and pet food. There's lots of ways in that industry that are still very profitable, and that we really would help encourage. When we went through and enacted the retail pet store ban here in Orange County, it was giving a full year, or does give a full year of transition for the stores that were currently in business with the retail pet sales as their primary source of income. In the meantime, the city of Ocoee decided that it wanted to protect one particular business that falls within the city limits of Ocoee. Now, I want to frame this in its totality because Ocoee, though it is a municipality and it does have a charter, does not have an animal services department. It does not have an animal shelter, and it doesn't have a health services department. So many of the issues that resulted from the retail pet sales practices that happened here in the county were absorbed by county taxpayers, were taken care of by our animal services department, and continue to be. We have capacity issues at the Orange County Animal Shelter, and it's an animal shelter that never turns animal away. And so to understand better the sort of cycle of how we end up with animals that need to be taken care of or sick animals, you have to understand that these pet stores were importing in volume at low cost and then selling high. And so we really can see the data, understand that it would really improve the overall health and welfare of our citizens. And Orange County, by majority, voted to ban the retail pet sales. Ocoee is working on an ordinance right now that would carve out one single store to allow for retail pet sales. It is a store that we can do the research on where they're getting their animals from, and they do ship them in from some of the worst offenders in puppy mills in the Midwest. And we have the data, we have the information. The first time that this ordinance was reviewed in the city of Ocoee, people from our Animal Services Advisory Board were there. There were some veterinary healthcare professionals there. There were some other advocates from various animal health and welfare agencies. But the city of Ocoee at the time really didn't want to hear from anybody with any of the data. They were not so interested in looking at the actual research that was the basis of the ordinance. So what happened was the commission, was a little bit divided on how to move forward. And one of the commissioners, Commissioner Firstner, and thank him if you reach out, really wanted to stay with Orange County's ordinance because of the understanding that Orange County's services encompass animal welfare. And the other commissioners, a couple of them were on the fence. The mayor, Rusty Johnson, was not interested at all in looking at any of the data and actually went on record by saying that he didn't read his emails that came in from some of the experts that researched this issue. So, my ask of you, if you care about this issue and you understand why Orange County has moved in the direction of trying to make sure that we're not getting puppy mill puppies shipped in, is to reach out to the city of Ocoee. You don't have to be an Ocoee resident, but if you are, you can say that. And I would make phone calls knowing that some of them don't check email, or if you can come out Tuesday evening. I really want to express the need for your voice. We heard from so many people who were really in favor of the ordinance that Orange County put into place. And I need those voices back in the room for the Ocoee ordinance, because unfortunately, should this one pet store be allowed to be exempted, Orange County as a whole will absorb whatever risks come with that. So if there are sicknesses that are brought in, if there are consumer lending practices that are predatory that affect other Orange County residents, if we do end up in a position where those dogs are dropped off at the animal shelter, sick or not, that goes under the Orange County Animal Services purview. So it does affect all of Orange County. And I understand the conversation that was had about local and home rule. And I understand the need for municipalities to really identify what's important for that municipality government. But when it comes to a service that a municipality doesn't provide and the county does provide, I would hope that the leadership would look to the data and research for why that ordinance was put into place at the county level.
So we'll definitely be posting more about that, so you can stay in tune with the updates, and definitely reach out to District 1 at ocfl.net if you have any additional questions. This is really important, and we definitely want to vocalize the concerns, since your tax dollars are going to Orange County Animal Services and ultimately have to deal with any issues that arise. So,
yeah. I have to share the story because I wanted to share it at the Ocoee meeting, but I got cut off. The mayor was not interested in hearing from a county commissioner. That when we went down and visited our friends and the animal welfare experts at our Orange County Animal Services, that we met a vet who does surgeries for Orange County Animal Services, who actually was fostering a puppy that was a retail pet store puppy that was imported from a puppy mill that had really severe congenital problems and in viruses. But this puppy was very fortunate to have been fostered by a professional in veterinary health care. How many out there haven't had that opportunity? And she was able to share her experience and her concern about the overall health and welfare of the animals in the county if we're literally importing diseases that can make our existing pets sick. I've heard from breeders who are very concerned about reputable breeders are concerned about the genetics of their breed. And when you have a puppy mill that does not take into account what kind of overbreeding and what it does to a genetic lineage, those breeders are very concerned for the health and well-being of their breed. So we've heard from really all different angles on why getting out of the retail pet store business is important. And on the other side of it, of course, is the owners of the retail pet store. And so they have the opportunity, of course, to make their change and to change their business model. I just really hope that Ocoee hears really from all sides of this and understands the impact and the overall risks that come with allowing this kind of import.
So, definitely go back through some of the virtual office hours where, Commissioner Wilson spoke about the county's discussions at the BCC when this was coming up. So you can really hear a lot of the consumer concerns and a lot of the things that were being discussed during the county's process, so you can get a better idea as well on why this is such an important issue. So we'll post about those again. They were very informative videos. So, alrighty, well, we'll move on to the next thing. Tonight is the Avalon lot split discussion, in-person meeting at the Korean Presbyterian Church. Maybe, Commissioner, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. I hope to see some, some folks out there, and the discussion is ongoing for what was something that was initiated not by a developer, but by some property owners that didn't quite hit the 10-acre threshold that was needed to split a 5 and a 5. And so as part of the process, when it's something that the staff is initiating or the county is initiating, there are 2 public hearings, and we really want to make sure that we're hearing anybody out there that's got concerns about this particular change in language. and I know that there's always sort of that defensive posture in Avalon rural settlement because the development is getting, closer, and the land is so valuable. But we're keeping a very close eye on applications that come in, and really those boundaries of the rural settlement are really important to our office. We work really hard to make sure that we know that anything that's coming down the pipeline that may impact the rural settlement.
Yeah, and that leads perfectly into the conversation coming up, I believe, at the November 9th BCC about rural settlement protections. If you want to go into that, Commissioner.
Yeah, and it mixes in with the Vision 2050 conversation as well. So maybe you want to chat a little bit about those updates.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those Orange County existing comprehensive plan topics that I think that we could do an entire day on if anybody wanted to come and dig into it. Because what the county did back, before they were putting into place the comprehensive plan that's in place now, was to come up with some identified areas that would have standards of development that were very specific to a rural settlement. And so those standards really required anything in the particular geographical boundary to have 1 unit per 5 acres or 10 acres. I think there's some that when they're close to a municipality, it can go down to 2 acres, but for the most part, it's a very different type of density. And as this county has, developed, and as we've seen the property values go up, there's threats and pressures from all over on being able to utilize that property in a different way. And one of the concerns that we have in my office, one of the concerns I came into this office with, was maintaining the integrity of the rural settlement, maintaining the boundaries and the promises that were made by the county all those years ago. And one of the things that came up recently was an elimination for an open space requirement in a specific area of the county, not in District 1. And it began sort of the conversation that rural settlements right now, because of a decision that the board made some years ago, aren't permitted to expand. So if a rural settlement property owner wants to buy a piece of property that may be adjacent to their property and include it in their rural settlement property overlay or get that designation, as of right now, they are not permitted to do that. And my understanding from sort of our discussion on Tuesday about a particular text amendment was that the Board of Commissioners, the mayor, want to hear more about that and want to hear more about what could happen in the future if there was an opportunity for expansion based on something that a property owner would want. I found it very difficult to hear a dead stop on expansion of a rural settlement, knowing that in every other case, if there's a property owner that wants to do something with their land, they have the opportunity to go through a due process. They get to go through a procedure. So to hear that there is no possibility for expansion caused me to ask staff, why is that? And they said, because the board decided that. And I said, but we're a board. So the conversation is going to keep on going. And hopefully what we may be able to get to is an understanding of a process that, should that happen, where there's an opportunity for expansion, or whether we call it the same thing or put it through the same type of process, it may look different. We are right now undergoing comprehensive plan updates through Vision 2050. And so those definitions of what is rural settlement, they are being really closely looked at. And so we can try to do a better job of protecting the existing rural settlement, and also maybe, having better opportunities for the edges and for the opportunity to expand if that's something that a private property owner wants to do. And that's my goal. And I think that, it should be something that if this board agrees to and has discussions about, that we can include in those updates.
Awesome. Definitely.
Maybe we can chat a little bit more some other things related to the Vision 2050 process, which please go to Orange County's website and Google Vision 2050, so you can fill out the survey on there and be in tune with that process, because the first draft will be coming out soon. Hannah, you've inspired me so much about, urban planning and transit, and, she's a readaholic. And so, one of the things that was brought up was micromobility, and that also came to the board. I'm trying to loop in the conversations that we've had throughout the week with the board meeting here. Tell me a little bit about that and that process.
So Vision 2050, we've definitely talked about extensively on the office hours and has been discussed extensively at all levels of county government at this point. They've done an excellent job gathering public input. The planning division in this county is so many light years ahead of so many other divisions because we've done so much as we've always done it. And that goes to the code too. The code we use is from the 1950s. And obviously people today want communities that are very different, right? And that's why Horizon West had to be a special planning area to get its walkability and its multi-use paths that are 10 to 14 feet and shade trees and all those things. That had to be special instead of the standard. And so Vision 2050 is working to make that the standard. And although it won't really apply to District 1 as much, you know, viewing Vision 2050 through the lens of a county-wide project that's going to affect everyone in the same way that sprawl affects everyone, right? Because all taxpayers have to pay for the infrastructure to bring out water or lift stations or sewer or highways, etc. And so there's Vision 2050 happening. We had a great briefing the other day and then on the first drafts coming. And at the same time, we had another work session on the micromobility ordinance, which is aimed at those scooters and bikes. And the reason they're annoying, maybe on iDrive, is because there's not any regulation yet. So this ordinance is going to be pretty instrumental in making sure that, you know, companies are responsible for making sure the scooters and the bikes go where they're supposed to go. They're not just sitting on the sidewalk, because as a biker and a pedestrian myself, I always have to navigate around those. And, you know, here in downtown Orlando, it can be pretty frustrating. So working on things like, you know, making a parking corral and figuring out the application fee and how much they have to pay and what they have to pay for and what they don't have to pay for. And do small businesses take any liability on if there's a micromobility related crash outside of them? And all these kinds of things were discussed in a discussion agenda item on Tuesday that I highly encourage everyone to go back and watch. I think it might have only been 45 minutes or an hour. It was great.
I put my hand up because I didn't want to talk over you, but I wanted to also say that it's interesting that part of the limitations to what we can do is also based in Florida legislation. So originally, the thought for me was that this type of micromobility devices that we see in more urban areas, the scooters, the bikes, the you know, the little powered things that kind of help in that last mile if you're doing transit, or are great if you're somebody who's just visiting and want to sightsee, that they wouldn't necessarily have a place in unincorporated Orange County. But because of state legislation, there is no way to prevent some usage. And so what we're better off doing is to try to really hone in on how to make it as applicable to the different variations in our county as possible, knowing that we have some areas, pockets of really urbanized and higher density, and we have some areas that are, you know, very tourist driven, that I think it would be a real benefit for people to be able to get around without having to worry about a cab or an Uber, or having just an alternative to get out of their car. So there's so many positives to it, and doing it the right way is just, it's taking a lot of work. It's a, you know, it's a heavy lift for the people that are the staff members that are working on that and studying other municipalities, studying other, you know, ordinances that are out there, and seeing sort of what's working and what's not. And there's a lot of stakeholder input. So it's been very interesting to hear that there was some pushback really from the iDrive corridor on allowing any micromobility. And I was a little surprised, because I thought, well, that would be the perfect place, knowing that it's so congested for drivers, and knowing that there's, you know, people want to sightsee. They want to go from business to business out there. They can do putt-putt in the morning and then head to lunch and then go out to the eye and do all that without sitting in a car would be such a benefit to those businesses. But there was pushback, and I think part because the existing infrastructure, there's some fear about risk that existing infrastructure, there's, the sidewalks are narrow. So we have the conversation about, what is a sidewalk that's usable for a micromobility device, as well as a walker, a wheelchair, a stroller. And then the other part of it is, I think there's an income base in people getting in their cars and having to pay for parking, having to tip the valet, and even the gig economy with Uber and Lyft. So there's always impacts to anything that looks like a benefit that we have to weigh and try to sort of see how we can come to the best place for everyone in the county, knowing that this would impact not just that corridor, but the entire county.
Right, and just like you said, getting ahead of that curve is, as we see every BCC, it's so much more valuable to get ahead and regulate responsibly than to have to go back and fix later.
Yep. I love that for the first time this week during that Vision 2050 meeting that we had, they were talking so heavily about the dire need to get cars off the road. And I was like, oh, music to my ears. I can't wait for us to actually be able to set that in stone even more so. And I got to bring up climate change because I'm the climate queen, but these conversations need to be had in every single component of the comprehensive planning process. So excited. Awesome. So moving on to the next thing. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I had the opportunity and honor, and if they're tuned into this, I just want to thank them again. I was invited by the sustainability department at Valencia College to sit on a panel, and there was some, brilliant people there, scientists, and the discussion about carbon sequestration came up, and what is out there in technology for how we capture carbon. And I'm going to make a very long and in-depth technical conversation really short by telling you the best thing we've got, the absolute best thing we've got to sequester carbon is a tree. And I mean that in its efficiency and its cost and the amount of space it takes up, in the impacts overall. So when I tell you these were scientists who were talking about the geology of having capture and what you can do with captured carbon, how do we sequester it into the ground? At the end of the day, the best possible way to combat climate change is to respect our tree canopy, to identify our tree canopy. So that's all going to be once again brought up in that Vision 2050, and hopefully even before then in the updated tree ordinance. But it was a confirmation for those of us who really tried to hone in on the tree thing, because for me as a local official, you think, well, this is the cheapest, easiest way for us to make that impact and make a quality of life change. But also scientifically and technically, it's the best way.
Moving into a conversation that I know we all wish would go away, but we have to bring it up because as of literally 7 minutes ago, the mayor's hosting a press conference, which is streaming live on Orange TV. But COVID-19 updates happen twice a week now from the mayor. And every time, Commissioner, you get an opportunity to speak on the importance of getting vaccinated and staying up to date on the rolling positivity rate, the virtual office hours are an opportunity for you to do that. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I will continue to ask people to stay the course. We've seen the numbers coming down, and even though correlation does not mean causation, the numbers began to come down as our vaccination rates went up. And we are really where we are now is where we were trying to get back in July. But what I am hopeful for is what that means is that we can finally round the corner. So I want to thank you. If you were on the fence and you made the decision to go ahead and get vaccinated, or you'd sort of been putting off your second, I want to thank you. I want to thank you because we're all benefiting from this. And when I talked to the people who work at the ICUs in the hospital, they were so worn down. They were so at the end of their rope that if we hadn't seen some of that improvement, I'm fearful of what would have happened to even those professionals and their future. So hearing from them that our ICU numbers are coming down, that our the infection rate in totality is coming down is critical. I will say that it looks like as of this week, or the last couple things that I've been updated, that we're going to be heading into the approval process, or the approval process is coming through for the younger set. And I think it's going to be 5 to 11 will be the next set. And so we'll be coming back to you with what the county has as far as resources and available locations, and any other questions that we can help answer, because that's going to be really the wave of people that I have been the most worried about recently, are the young people who couldn't get vaccinated because they weren't eligible for that vaccine. The vaccine has been overwhelmingly safe and effective. I know there are breakthrough cases, so don't come for me, but they are breakthrough cases. I understand that, but those aren't the people on life support. And that is, that's been confirmed again and again through our immunologists and our virologists, from the people that work in our intensive care units. So even though, we have some retired chiropractors that will show up at the BCC and yell at us about mask wearing, I'm going to rely on the people that really study viruses and the immune system, and that do the work actually, in a room where they've worn a mask always. To hear from somebody that wearing a mask is going to make you sick, I'm like, what are you going to tell the surgeons? The surgeons, I don't want to go into surgery and have a surgeon working on me without a mask on. So even if there was a little teeny shred of validity to that, it makes no sense. So anyway, if you hear that misinformation, if you overhear that misinformation, just do your part in trying to you put the facts back out there, in trying to make sure that you're reinforcing, that we are all still supporting each other to get through this. It's not done yet, but man, it's looking better. It's looking so much better.
Well, just to spit out some numbers for you, we're at 6% for the rolling 14-day positivity rate, which is great. We were at 20% when we were at that peak, and now it's really curving down. So I can't wait till we get zero for everything. Anyway, 74% of the people who are eligible to get the vaccine have been vaccinated. And so we'll just continue to keep you up to date on all of those things. We might have better news after the conference today. Yeah.
Hopefully.
I hope so. Like I said, I'm very encouraged.
One thing that I think maybe Hannah, you can kind of introduce is the medical school conversation that came to the BCC.
Yeah, so that's a great one. So at the BCC, there was actually a lot going on Tuesday. Ironically, it ended up being an afternoon session, and poor commissioners, it did not end early because there was quite a bit to talk about. And so that included the public hearing for the new medical school coming to Horizon West. That's Silverleaf surrounding Lake Ingram. You should have seen that in our newsletter as well. That was approved, and Commissioner, if you want to go into that great news, please do.
I would love to. I've said ever since I jumped into the race and talked about what I feel like District 1 goals should be. One of them was in Horizon West. The residents there were told that community would be a work here, play here, school here community. And it really made me feel nervous for them that it seemed like every land use case coming through was just housing. And so what that does is, of course, make everyone in that area get on the road for 27 minutes or 24 minutes, not everyone, but we want to make sure that those economic drivers that can be right there and that people can, find a professional track, that if those opportunities are out there, that we're able to get them as close as we can. So I'm so excited for District 1. I'm so excited for Horizon West to have a medical school. There is a shortage of primary care physicians in our country right now. There's a shortage of several different specialties, and it's also going to have an allied health component to it. I believe a dental school and other allied health training eventually, so down the road. But even just to see the original, sort of approvals for the land use makes me feel very optimistic that that's going to be coming, and we'll get as much information out to you all as we get as it comes down the line. There's a lot of regulatory involvement when a medical school is approved to come in to a community, and so that part of it is really out of our hands, but I've been really fortunate to have great communication from the medical school officials, and so we get it, we will pass it on. We're just really excited to see that opportunity come to Horizon West.
We did get some good news about the process of 2 ordinances is underway, the tree ordinance and the fertilizer ordinance. You want to share any updates on that?
Well, first, Commissioner, did you want to go over anything else from the BCC public hearing, like the continuance issued?
I think we can. I think we can touch base on it next week, since we have one more week before we have to go to that.
Okay.
Some of these other updates are good. Also, and then if you have any questions about anything on that BCC, and I know there were some really sort of intense projects that were discussed, please reach out, and we can try to answer and get as much information to you as possible.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you. So the other 2 ordinances to keep an eye out for, and once again, please always sign up for our newsletter at the bottom of NicoleWilson.org. We really use that as a good resource for those educational tools for especially the legislative stuff, as well as community events, and they go out every week with bi-weekly alternating between community and legislative. So the first thing is that an ordinance coming to the BCC is something that we're very excited about. The tree protection ordinance for a work session on October 26th. Do you want to hop into it, Commissioner?
I just want to say that we could say AKA carbon sequestration ordinance. It's so good.
It's going to be great. Staff has done so much work on it, and we really appreciate it.
I want to thank Alan Marshall. I want to thank Jeff Benavides. I want to thank anybody and everybody who jumped in on this, because there's been so many, the staff had, this is a passion project, not just for us. So it's been really exciting to see it coming together.
Yeah, and it just so you have a little bit of a bird's eye view, because it's going to have a lot of different things that it's going to touch on. But right now they're doing assessments to really look at biodiversity of trees throughout the county, and do a lot of data collection on what types of trees and what types of habitats they provide for what types of species in the area. That's all being considered. The median tree program and conserving older trees during new development, and they're really taking a deep dive on how we can preserve but also incentivize better landscaping practices throughout the entire county. So it's very exciting stuff.
It's going to be big, so make sure to come on through. And because it'll be a work session and a discussion, there will not be a public hearing or a vote. So if you do want to make public comment, you have to come at 9 a.m., but please do so, or email every district commissioner and the mayor. And then the other ordinance, this is a stakeholder meeting.
And
Oh. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Sorry, I was going to say really quickly, one of the things I hear from people a lot out here in District 1, and it's related, is their concern about the mass grading, mass grubbing, when you see, an entire landscape that's been, basically scrubbed clean of any vegetation before development. And, I want to make sure that we're tying these 2 things together, that this will be connected to those issues.
Yeah, exactly. And this ordinance is even going to address a few of the things that constituents actually have brought up to us multiple times. Staff has been really good. Alan Marshall even went out with one of our constituents to their neighborhood to see where the HOAs may have been illegally or loophole tree trimming. So this is even going to address that. It's going to be really comprehensive, and we're looking forward to it. The last ordinance, this is a stakeholder meeting. Lee, what are the dates? It's for the fertilizer ordinance update.
Yeah, October 21st at 9 a.m. and at 5 p.m. It's really exciting because, this is the first step to looking at the fertilizer ordinance that's already in place and figuring out how to strengthen it. I think we as a county haven't really vocalized the direct connection between the practices that are done here and like the large-scale manatee deaths that have happened throughout the state. We're all responsible if we're all consuming water and putting fertilizers and pesticides on our lawns. We're all a part of it, and you can't use county lines to limit responsibility from that. So taking a chance to have input from the community and from business owners on what strengthening the fertilizer ordinance would mean is a really great first step towards assessing that. And so that'll be on October 21st at 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. at the Orange County Extension Office with UF IFAS, and we'll definitely be posting about that. Commissioner, if you wanted to share more.
I did. I just want to chime in. I think, obviously understanding kind of the systemic problem with that fertilizer getting into our aquifer, into our water bodies, but we can just take it micro, and understanding if you don't really have a lot of other experience with some of the issues, you may live near a lake that you've seen some blooms that are things that aren't supposed to be growing at certain times of year, or you've seen a degradation of the water clarity or quality. That is all impacted by the type of fertilizer ordinance and type of application that we've permitted here in Orange County. And we are one of the last counties to really get up to speed on what those impacts are. And, it really isn't something that is going to devastate any existing business. It's just an adaptation for application. So I am very, very much looking forward to getting those updates done so that we can, say for sure that we're being proactive about what the water quality is for every body of water in Orange County.
Yep, very exciting stuff. All right, so if it's okay, I'd like to kind of go over some of the meetings and events coming up. If you would like to see everything related to District 1's office events, there's a lot of events going on throughout District 1, but specifically meetings that are pertaining to this office, you can go to nicolewilson.org/events. And obviously we have that Avalon settlement, rural settlement lot split community meeting in person tonight. That'll be at 6 o'clock at the Korean Presbyterian Church. There will also be, very important, a supply drive on November 13th with Matthew's Hope at 10 a.m. We just locked that in because Pastor Scott, who we've collaborated with on events like this before, has really been, emailing us and calling us and letting us know that the amount of need in the community right now is dire. And I feel as though, the need has always been there and has been dire for a long time. But due to COVID and people getting evicted and not being able to maybe tap into resources and not having access to internet or cell phone service, there's been a tsunami of need, people living in their cars, people living in parking lots. So, Commissioner Wilson, you've been vocal about this need since the first day you stepped foot in this office.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all just have to come at it from as many different angles as possible. I was really honored to get a chance to talk to some of the brilliant and strong women in Florida Rising this week about what they're doing out there in the community, trying to get rental assistance into people's pockets or into, basically the landlord, so that they can stay housed, because it is much easier and less, burden to the entire community if we can keep people where they are. Getting people back in somewhere is a much more difficult process. And these are our neighbors, our friends. I pray that if I come to a point in my life where I need the assistance of my community, that there's someone there to hold me up. And so I'm very grateful to Matthew's Hope for all they do every single day, for all of our community partners that are assisting residents in getting through some of those, the application processes for the services and benefits that are available. The state has benefits available, the county has benefits available, the city of Orlando has benefits available, but they're all different forms, which I think is a little burdensome, even if you have good internet, even if you have a good device. So, trying to help people get past those things to try to get the assistance that's in place for them is its own full-time job. So, we just want to make sure we're coming at it at different angles. The supply drive is critical because those are the basic needs that are handed out every single day at Matthew's Hope. But there's other places for you to get involved if you want to hear about volunteer opportunities for other ways to help people that are out in our community that are struggling.
Yeah, and shout out to Florida Rising and Kia and her team who came and talked to us a little bit about what they're seeing on the front lines of of some of these communities where people really need access to rental assistance and other programs, like partnerships like that out in the community that are doing the door-to-door really help, fill that gap. Because, obviously, as an elected official, Commissioner Wilson gets a lot of calls, a lot of emails, a lot of texts, and so it's such a huge part of the job to just handle the inquiries coming in. But if you don't have a phone, and if you don't have internet, or if you don't speak English as your dominant language, then you really might not know what resources are accessible to you. And so those community members that are helping to bridge those gaps of services are essential.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm so grateful to people with that heavy lift out in the community.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, we do have one question, so let's go ahead and hear from our constituents.
Linda Sibley
Linda Sibley.
asks,
Hi, Linda. We chat, we text Linda. She's very active in her community.
she asks, is Valencia still planning on building a campus in Horizon West?
It's in their 5-year plan.
It's in their 5-year
I don't
plan.
have a lot of specifics. I know it's in their 5-year plan. So I know that we'll be getting more information as time goes on. I have a great relationship with the people at Valencia. And so, I've said all along, if you have information that I can give out to residents, I am always, clamoring for more information. So I do know that that is theirs. They have no intention of getting rid of it, if you will. And their plan is to, they have a 5-year plan for putting in I think something that may mirror what's on the east side of town, but I'm not 100%.
But we have not received any sort of permit yet, but it's there. So we don't have too much info yet, but it's coming.
That's right.
Yeah, please sign up for the newsletter at
But
NicoleWilson.org.
they've got the property.
All right.
Commissioner, do you have any signing off comments that you want to say to people as we're wrapping up?
Just my thank you to every, the residents of this county always amaze me with their involvement and their understanding of, what's going on. And so I'm just very grateful. So have a great rest of your week. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you all so much. Have a happy Thursday, and we will tune in with you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Hey.